Hello everybody, JGC Anime here, and today we are going to be reviewing My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission, or Boku no Hero Academia the Movie 3 World Heroes Mission. This is the third installment in the My Hero Academia movie series, even though there's like 5 seasons of the anime. And yeah, we're just gonna hop right into this. So, what is the story's premise? The movie takes place in like another country, I can't remember which country it was, where Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki, along with working out at Endeavor's agency, like they've gone to another place with Endeavor and his agency to go take down a threat known as, I think it's Humorize, which go off this like thing called the Quirk Doomsday Theory, where they want to erase people with quirks, similar to how some of the other villains have been thinking, you know, because that seems to be like one of the main themes of a lot of villains in My Hero Academia. Some of them like embrace quirks, while others say they're like a curse. That's usually the one or two premises that these guys go off of, and that's the idea. And during their time trying to track these guys down, Deku accidentally like gets into an involvement with this new character introduced in the movie called Rhodey, where they end up stealing something. They don't know what it is, but it turns out it's actually important to Humorize, and thus, because they have a lot of people and connections, Humorize sets it up that Deku becomes a wanted criminal along with the newly introduced character Rhodey, and they have to kind of like go under cover in a way, and not really undercover, but like on the run. They were on the run while Bakugo and Todoroki try to figure things out. All the while, Humorize is working behind the scenes to help produce these things called trigger bombs that activate as like bombs that would kill people using their own quirks or something. It was very dramatic at like the beginning of the movie, and honestly it was a pretty intense scene. Like actually gave me goosebumps, but I'm not trying to go into any spoilers past that. Basically that's the premise of this, and yeah, let's just talk about some spoiler-free thoughts. Honestly, this is probably my favorite of the My Hero Academia movies. I thought the first one wasn't that great. In fact, it's probably one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. Sure, the action was good, but I found more love for story than action, so that's why stuff like Demon Slayer and My Hero Academia don't sit with me as well as some of the other stuff. But I did like the action in that one, but I thought most of the story was terrible. I thought the second one was much better. The story was a lot more like well written, and it definitely felt more like thought out. And this one, personally, I think it was the best with the way it handled its story. The story didn't feel too fast-paced. It felt very well thought out. Everything felt like it was all wrapped together perfectly. And while I almost kind of wish this was like its own season with this kind of premise, it still worked for the movie it was. And I did enjoy the majority of it. I can't talk. But yeah, the majority of it, I did enjoy most of it. Like, I thought the beginning was pretty good and the middle. The end, things got a bit weird for me, but I can talk about all that in the spoiler section. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this movie, and it's actually one of the first times where a movie-introduced character became one of my favorite characters in Rhodey. Rhodey is a character I actually really like. This, with the fact that it's more of his character arc, since that's what the story focuses on. Like Deku, who hangs out with him, is kind of acting as like a symbol to help Rhodey learn more about himself in a way, and realize what he can do and learn some things behind the scenes. And while there were a few characters I wish had more attention in this movie, like a majority of the characters other than Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki and Rhodey, pretty much all of them were almost non-existent. They just were kind of in the background, like Ochako and All Might and all those other characters, even Endeavor, who probably had a decent amount of screen time from time to time. None of them really did much, but that makes sense. This is meant to be a movie that's kind of canon to the show, but it's designed in a way so that way even if it is canon, it's not going to like affect anything. But I definitely feel like I still really enjoyed a lot about this movie, and it just had some very fun moments in it that I especially really liked that, again, I can talk about in the spoiler section. So how about we just actually, before we talk about that, there are a few things I want to go over. The animation, for the most part, is good, but there are parts that I feel are super lazy. Like, people always say that action scenes where everything moves fluently can sometimes look nice, but they seem to mix look nice with simple animation. Like, I remember watching Black Clover, and there was like this really weirdly animated scene using like base colors between the main character of that series, Asta, and some other character I can't remember. But it looked so like stupid to me, but apparently everyone else really liked that fight and thought it looked nice. I thought it looked terrible. But this does have a few moments like that in this movie that just look off. But a majority of the action is still pretty solid, and it's actually one of the first times I've ever enjoyed seeing Bakugo on screen, even though I'm not a big fan of his personality. It's not the worst. He's not my least favorite character or anything, but he just doesn't really sit with me well because I don't like his very over screamy, over shouty personality. But yeah, moving past that for now, why don't we just hop into the spoiler section now. So here's a timestamp to when the spoilers will come to a conclusion, and I will be giving my final thoughts. And if you have seen this movie, I'd recommend sticking around to hear my thoughts, but if you haven't, then I'd recommend skip it to the end so that way you don't get any spoilers, but I would appreciate if you stuck around if you have at least seen the movie. So yeah, that's it. So let's just count up from 5 and then hop into the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I mentioned before how I actually really liked Rhodey, and I just personally really enjoyed his character arc throughout this movie. Like, the entire movie kind of like helped him learn that he doesn't have to help criminals, because in the beginning he was originally acting as like a third party to help some criminals steal some jewels from a bank, which eventually leads towards him getting that suitcase with the gems in it mixed up with this other suitcase that has like a secret to take out Humorize's special bombs. But, you know, that leads towards him ending up getting to a misunderstanding with Deku, and then the two of them end up having to team up because the police force in the city that they're fighting in is corrupt, because the people there have been corrupted by Humorize. Thus, you know, they pin Deku as a criminal, even though all of his friends are just like, that's some bull, and just kind of straight up Bakugo and Todoroki immediately go and work things out. And overall, I did think that a few of the other characters did stand out at times, like Bakugo against these weird knife guys. That was a pretty cool action scene, but again, I've really not really been into action scenes as much, and it's really hard for me to get into them. I did kind of get into the fight between Deku and the villain of this movie. I believe his name is Flecht, where he goes up against Deku. At this fight, at the beginning of it is actually really well done, but then like halfway through, when Deku does this like One Punch Man, like serious consecutive punches move, it gets a little bit lazy with that animation I mentioned before, where everything kind of just stands stiffly and uses much simpler colors for a majority of it, and it just felt a little off. It's like the first half of the fight was really awesome. I was actually rooting for Deku. I mean, I was like, come on, Deku, you got this! Like, I was actually cheering for him. But then when the second half came along, it just kept going and going. It reminded me of how the way I felt when I was watching this one scene in Demon Slayer, where it just felt like it stayed way over its welcome. It just wouldn't stop. And that was a big issue for me, but it wasn't like a big, why am I saying it's a big issue? It's not a big issue. It's a very small issue. It's not like something massive. It just was a little bit of a complaint on my end. I thought it was just a very dragged out scene, and it should have probably ended way faster, but it didn't. I think it's just because they were trying to fit that mark of a really like satisfying conclusion while also fitting into the hour and a half or so time frame they were given. It's still a pretty good movie. As I said, I mentioned that I liked the beginning and middle halves. I really liked the beginning with like everyone's quirks going crazy, and I believe them all dying, like a bunch of citizens from the green smoke, the trigger stuff. I thought that was really cool. It actually gave me goosebumps while I was watching, and I was kind of excited to see where that was gonna go. And it did kind of go to just like mentioning the main thread of the movie. And the middle segment where Deku and Rhodey are on the run was also really interesting. I thought that was quite a fun little thing, and also how Deku is still trying to be like the good boy, where he rode on top of a bus while they were trying to get away, but because he didn't want to feel like they were riding it without permission or riding it without paying, he ended up tossing some coins into the bin so that he put the coins in for the bus, which was really funny. And I feel like Rhodey and Deku definitely interacted off each other well, especially with the little bird of Rhodey's, I think its name is Pino, I believe, which acts as like the true emotions of Rhodey. And I personally just love Rhodey's development in this movie. He is one of the few characters I actually really liked simply because he has I wouldn't say a unique personality. He's like one of those low-running thugs gone good type characters. But I still enjoyed him a lot, and I thought his whole thing where he tried his hardest to help Deku save the world in the end was a really interesting, like, piece of his character development. Like, I feel like his siblings could have done more, because he has, like, 2 siblings whose names I can't remember right now. But Rhodey has these 2 siblings. I thought they would have, like, become more relevant to the plot, but they just act as, like, the emotional drive for him, which is fine. I'm cool with just having an emotional drive. And they were fine, I guess, but they didn't do much, so don't really have an opinion on them. Still, Rhodey was probably one of the most fun parts of this film, simply because he, despite his constant backstabbing of Deku, seriously, he backstabbed him once on purpose and did like a fake backstab near the end, but, well, mainly just because he just wanted to get his peace and quiet, but he still had some things that he had as flaws, but I still think that he's a much better character now after he, you know, fixed himself up, and now he's working as a person who works at a bartender place. But overall, I think that he's probably one of the most fun characters in this movie, and I think this was just a good movie overall. It was the first time I actually enjoyed watching a My Hero Academia movie. I remember pausing like 48 minutes in to take a small break, and all I could think was, wow, this movie's so good. Of course, the end kind of dragged on for a bit, way more than I would have preferred, but it was still a very fun movie, and that's why I think it's probably the best out of the My Hero Academia movies. So with that said, we're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? It's, like as I mentioned before, it's probably the best of the 3 My Hero Academia movies. There is the whole show as well, but I'm not really including that in this review. I'm just including the movies, just going off the movies themselves and my familiarity with the characters, Deku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Endeavor, all those characters. Basically, I thought it was a fun film. I thought it was an entertaining film, and while it did drag on at times, I liked it a lot. And that's why I would have to rate My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission an 8 out of 10. Very enjoyable movie, and definitely stands out as one of the few times I can actually say I really enjoyed something from My Hero Academia. That may sound weird to say, I struggled to really have like a love for the series, but this was a good movie and I had a good time with it. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I always welcome new anime fans to the channel. And yeah, I will see you all around. Peace!